Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, where real people share real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best life. I'm Michelle Scharf.
And I am Jennie Taylor, and today we are really excited to have my good friend Courtney Checketts join us. We're so glad you could be here, and we're excited to hear your story. I was letting Michelle know a little bit about you before we got into the studio, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So will you tell us about you and your husband and your sweet little girls?
So Rocky and I met when I was 19 and he had just turned 26. So my parents were a little nervous because he was quite a bit older than me. But we met at the Ogden Raptors baseball game, and a couple of my friends were going, and we were going to meet some friends of one of my friends. So we went, and Rocky was with them, and I remember seeing him for the first time, and I thought he was so cute, but I assumed that he had been married or had kids because I knew they were older than us, but
well, when you're 19,
he hadn't.
When you're 19, 27 feels really old. I mean, I remember being that
26.
age. 26.
Yes.
Okay, 7 years difference.
7 years older.
Okay. Okay.
So it was, a big, age difference, but we had a lot of fun that night. And then that night when we were done hanging out, he asked me for my number. And then the next day he asked me on a date, and then we basically dated, ever since for a year and a half. And then we got married and everything was great. Rocky started a construction company a couple years into us being married, right when the economy, fell apart back in
2008.
Yeah. So this was actually 2010 when he did, but he, economy still wasn't great, but he started a company and did great and everything was great. And then a couple years later, we decided we were ready to start having kids. And so we got pregnant. I got pregnant with Indy, our oldest, and Rocky ended up selling his company and started working for contractor school. And that is the business that I still run today. So we have our next daughter, Cody, who's 5. And then basically I'll fast forward to 2018. So we were pregnant with our third little girl, and I was 20 weeks pregnant, and we went to the Target ultrasound, the big one at 20 weeks. And we went in, and the nurse, the ultrasound tech was starting to do the ultrasound, and we'd had several ultrasounds, and our baby was always super active, and she would hold the umbilical cord and in both of her hands and shake it. And
oh, how cute.
We got tons of good ultrasound pictures of her, which we never did of our other kids. But she, so she starts doing the ultrasound, and within 30 seconds, she looks at me and asks if, when's the last time I was in? And I could tell she kind of looked panicked. And so I had just been in, about 3-4 weeks prior, and everything was great. And my husband's looking up on the video because he wanted a boy, because we had 2 girls. And so he's trying to see if he can see anything different than it being a girl. And she looked at me and just shook her head and said, "There's no heartbeat." And so
Courtney,
it was super shocking because everything had been great with her. And so she couldn't really tell us much because the doctor wasn't there. And so she called the doctor while we were sitting there, and he said that I'd just he'd call and schedule me for the next day to come in and deliver. And so they just sent us home, which my whole family was at my house, or my mom's house, with my kids waiting to have a full-on gender reveal party. And they had told us before, they thought it was a girl, but my husband was holding on to hope it was maybe a boy. So we go pick up my kids, and I mean, we're just distraught and trying to act like tough, for the girls and stuff. And they have no idea. They're just 2 and 4. So they're little.
Yeah. They're just playing at grandma's or playing with grandma.
Right. They have no idea. And so we go home, and I went and got in the shower, and I've never felt so much sadness in my life. Because our baby was dead in my stomach, and they said she had probably died like 2 to 3 weeks prior.
Oh my gosh.
And I had no idea, and I had no like nothing that would have indicated that anything was wrong. You're still early enough that you don't really feel like too much. And so
Right. Well, and you've been pregnant before. You've been pregnant before, and it didn't feel like terrifyingly different. It just felt like you're pregnant.
Right. I was super sick, but I'd been sick the whole time. And so like nothing had changed. And so we go in the next day, and I had C-sections with my other 2, but they didn't do a C-section on this. And so they started me out on this medicine, and after like 12 hours, I still hadn't progressed at all. And so they were like, they couldn't figure out what was going on, but then they realized they were giving me the complete wrong dose. So they had been giving me like 1 milligram instead of 100. And I don't know for sure the terms,
but whatever it was, they weren't giving you enough.
Yeah, it didn't do anything. So I was and they wouldn't let me eat the whole time because they were nervous if I had to go into surgery, which I wasn't hungry, but I mean, I could have nothing but clear liquids. Well, I don't even think I could have clear liquids at that point. Yeah. So I ended up being in labor for 42 hours with her. And so it was just a horrible couple days.
Oh, you're breaking everyone's heart, Courtney. So you're in labor for 42 hours with the baby you don't even get to take home.
Yeah.
What?
So, and you just,
oh my goodness,
walk into the hospital and go into the labor and delivery unit, and everybody's, so excited. And that's before COVID, where the whole family's, out in the waiting room, and the dad's running out saying, she's almost here. And, so we saw all this stuff, and you're in a normal room,
right,
with the baby warmer, and, and so I had great nurses, and they were so awesome. And so we go through all that, and I finally had her, and it was a really special and sacred experience for me and my husband, and it brought us really, really close. And so we'd been married 7 years at this point, and I thought we were already as close as we could get, but that just
after she was born, was born,
going through that. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. After she was born, were they able to figure out like what happened, or did she just appear to be perfect? And
yeah, so she actually, the cord had got wrapped around her neck 3 times, and then it was like under her leg and under her arm. So she was just completely, they had to cut it multiple times. Like she was completely just like entangled in the cord.
The sweet little active baby that had been having so much fun moving around. Oh, Courtney.
And so, and they kept saying this, you can't let this stop you from having more kids. And this is the fluke thing. And, kind of like,
yeah, it does happen, but it is rare, and it would be rare to happen again. But
so tell us again, when was this? Was this February of 2018?
Yep, February 2nd of 2018 is when I had her, and I was due in June. So
very early.
So halfway through, and so then we go home from the hospital, and we had told our girls, and our girls are so little, and they were just like, they've grown up like knowing about heaven, and they've been raised with this knowledge, so they just kind of accepted it, and they asked some questions, but they pretty much just understood, she's in heaven and she's an angel. And so a couple months, we're just trying to recover and start living a somewhat normal life. But I was still grieving. And so then Rocky and I loved to go to, well, he loved to go to Moab. We had a razor and he loved it. So our girls loved it. We had a 4-seater and we'd buckle them in their car seats in the back. And that was one of our favorite things to do as a family. So we went in April with his family and had a blast. And then he wanted to go back in May. And I didn't love it personally. I always thought it was scary. We're going up these crazy hills and rocks, and I got my 2 babies in the back.
And you've been traumatized by losing your 3rd baby. I mean, that's a lot going on in those initial weeks after losing someone so close. And
right.
Not to mention what your body's going through with postpartum and everything, the physical side of being pregnant and not being pregnant anymore. So
exactly.
So it's May and you're getting ready to go to Moab, but you didn't really want to go. Is that kind of what you're saying?
So we went in April, and then he wanted to go again in May because there was this like a rally where they all go and like go together on rides with a bunch of different people and stuff. So I was like, I don't really want to go. And so he was, we were talking about it and he did. And so I finally decided, okay, we can go, that's fine. But he had in the meantime asked 3 of his friends. And so Rocky, just a little background on him, is he has 10, there's a group of 10 of them that have been friends since elementary school. And still to this day, now their wives are some of my very best friends. They've been like his family to him. His parents got divorced and he had a harder childhood. So he always relied on his friends. And so 3 of them went with him to Moab. And so I'll bring you to the day of, so it was May 17th, 2018. And he was so excited to go. The night before, we're out in the driveway and I'm videoing him. He's washing the razor and we're the one with the razor, and it was his truck and trailer. So all of the friends met that morning, and Rocky was like a kid on Christmas morning. I kept teasing him because he kept like looking out the window. He was so excited because his goal was to get his friends to love this. And so they were all going to go buy razors and we're going to do this as a big friend group. And, it's just going to be perfect. So the wives, so the other wives all came and dropped their husbands off, and like we all said goodbye. We even like took a picture of them right in front of my house. And I wasn't worried at all because he was Rocky was responsible and safe, and he liked to have fun, but he wasn't, and he knew he didn't want to like go traumatize his friends by doing this crazy things and then they wouldn't ever want to buy a razor. So I wasn't worried about him at all. And so that brings us to, I see him, I have like the Find My Friend. So I knew he had got to Moab. I kind of had been watching and saw that he made it. And we always go on a ride right when we get there. It's like right before town, and we've gone on it every time. So I'm super familiar with it, and that was the plan. So they get there, they start going on the ride, and then I'm just going about my day as usual. My little girl had tumbling that night. So we would usually go to dinner before, because she had it at 6. So his family owns Moore's Family Restaurant, and there's a couple different ones in Ogden, but it's a
delicious
family
breakfast.
restaurant
Yeah.
out here. So we had gone to dinner there. So I brought my neighbor girl, who was she was almost 16, but she's just a good like friend, and she would help my kids. And so I asked her if she wanted to come, and she did.
We're going to pause right now. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. And we're going to hear what you found out after having dinner at Moore's. We'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. Courtney, you're telling us you ate dinner. You're about to head to tumbling with your little girl. You've been tracking Rocky on Find My Friends. Everything looks good. What happens with the rest of that day on May 17th, 2018?
Okay, so we had just ordered at Moore's, and all of a sudden, well, as I'm ordering, my dad is calling me, and we're in the middle of ordering. So I didn't answer. So I thought I'd call him right back. And then he calls me again. So I answered, and you can hear the panic in his voice. And he's saying, where are you? And I'm like, oh, we're at Moore's, eating. Indy has tumbling. And he's like, okay, stay there. There's been a family emergency. And I knew what that meant, that like somebody was hurt or somebody had died. But I was thinking my grandpa or one of my brothers, something had happened. And I was like, Dad, is it Mom? What's going on? And he won't tell me. And so he just said, I'll be there in just a second. Just stay there. So I walk outside. I tell my neighbor, just stay in here with the girls. I think something's wrong. So I go outside and I'm just sitting there. And then I hang up with my dad and I call my mom, and my mom's just same thing. You can tell something's wrong. And I'm trying to get her to tell me. And she said, we're almost there, so they pull in, and I mean, I have no idea what's going on still at this point. Rocky didn't even cross my mind of like something had happened to him. And all of a sudden they come out, and we're outside, and they just say, Rocky's been in an accident and he died. And I just like, I couldn't even cry. I just was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like I remember like, why am I not crying? But I couldn't.
Just in sheer shock.
Yeah. I just was like, what do you mean? What happened? And they said, we don't know exactly, but we know that he fell from a cliff and has died. And so I was like, no, why don't they take him to the hospital? And my mom and dad were telling me that life flight came, but he died before they could take him. And so I start calling his friends because I need to know for sure. Like, I don't know. I feel like I know my parents like were trying to tell me, but
no, it's your brain.
Like I didn't believe him,
right, Absolutely. No, I've had those calls, and when my sister's husband died, and I couldn't process it. Sometimes it just takes a bit for your brain to even go there, especially when it's so unexpected.
Hey, here's a question. Right. How did your parents find out before you did? Because I think if my parents called to tell me they had horrible news, I wouldn't think it was about my husband, because I think I would maybe think the police would call me if it was my husband.
Right.
So do you know how the word got to them first? Yeah. So one of Rocky's friends, he knew my dad. And so he actually had his number, and
what a blessing.
Called my dad to tell him. So, they wouldn't just.
That is amazing. And the thoughtfulness of that man to think, hey, I have Courtney.
I've got to tell his dad.
I've got to tell her dad she needs support when she hears this news.
Right. And I have
and to not, who knows where you would have been. You don't want someone calling you while you're driving in a car. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so, and I have the greatest parents, and our whole, I think everybody just knows that knows me, as I have an amazing family. So I know that didn't even cross his mind, but not to call my dad. He's like, I got to get her parents, because they're distraught. They just saw this happen. So, and they didn't have the service. What was that, Jenny?
You said they've been friends forever, right? These buddies that are with him, they're like brothers.
Right. And so basically, I am calling, and it's just all going to voicemail because they're in this remote part of Moab where they don't have great service. So basically, I guess what happened was they were out of the Razor, and I know exactly where it is because I have videos of Rocky and I in the same spot. They had just climbed up to get up on top of these rocks, but it wasn't anything crazy. And so Rocky was first, and then his two other friends were coming next. And then his other friend was kind of hanging out toward the bottom. And I'm not sure if he was going to go up or if he was just hanging out down there, but so Rocky had got up there, and there was kind of a landing part where it's a big area and flat as far as I can tell, and not like a steep drop off. And it was only about 30 feet, and where he fell was just into sand. And so nobody saw it happen. So we don't exactly know like what happened, but his friends got up there and are kind of like, where's he at? And so they're yelling, rock. And so his one friend, Shane, looks over the edge and saw that Rocky had fallen. So the other friend who's down at the bottom runs over and is to him just immediately. And so Rocky had broken his femur. So his leg is like snapped behind his, facing the wrong way. So the other friend runs down to Shane, who saw Rocky, and Jake stays up top. He's the one who called my dad, but he calls 911 and is trying to explain where they're at. But Rocky luckily was still alive and like coherent. And so he was able to yell up and tell them like exactly where they were. And so Rocky they're just laying there and he had a little bit of blood like on his face, but he wasn't bleeding anywhere, and was talking, but was a little bit out of breath and maybe a little disoriented, but not really. And so they call 911, they get Lifeline on the way, and it took about 45 minutes. And in the meantime, he's saying I think he told him to take his socks and shoes off because he was hot, and they're pouring water on his head just to cool him down, and they're talking, and they know he's going to be okay. And he even, he knows he's going to be okay. Backstory is back in 2005, he got in a really bad car accident. And this is before I knew him, but he was driving to Rock Springs for work, and he was with two other guys, and they got in a single vehicle car crash, and nobody knows what happened. Rocky wasn't driving, but they all were ejected, and the other two died. So he survived that and broke his neck and broke his back. And I mean, that was way worse, it seemed like, than this was. And so I think he just thought, I'm going to be fine, get me to the hospital and I'm going to be fine. Yeah. And so they give him a priesthood blessing and just, ask for comfort. And finally, Lifeline shows up, and they're all kind of like, okay, good. We're going to, if we can just make it to Lifeline gets here. The
hospital can fix this. Yeah. We've got great modern medicine.
Yeah. He's going to be fine. It doesn't appear to be anything besides the broken leg. And so Lifeline gets there, and they drop the paramedics off, but Lifeline left to go get more paramedics because they needed where he landed wasn't really on a flat spot. So they needed to carry him down to get him onto the helicopter. Got it. And so while they were gone, I think he just started like not being able to breathe, and his lung had collapsed. And so they put, and I don't even know, I guess they put the chest tube in, and I think just like within a matter of minutes, he started panicking, which is horrible to think about. Yeah. But he was telling him to hurry, and then he just died. They don't, like, at that point we didn't really know what had happened. And so fast forward till the autopsy, I really didn't know, but so he tore his aorta in two spots, and then also his femoral artery. So he just bled out, but internally just completely bled to death, basically.
Oh my gosh. How long did it take to get those autopsy results back? How long did you have to not know that?
Like 8 weeks. And it was horrible because they just mail it to you, and you have no idea when it's coming. So
they mail you
constantly
results? No one calls you?
Nobody called me, nothing. They just throw it in the mail.
So cold.
That seems terrible.
That's horrible.
It was horrible. And then it's, you get it, and it's all these medical terms.
It's very technical. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I have no idea what that even meant, So luckily one of our friends is a nurse practitioner, and
could help kind of
I called him and I called my parents, and like immediately Rocky's friends were all here and family, and he was able to put it into terms that we understood. And it was comforting because, you know, talking to a couple different people in the medical field, if that happened even while you're laying on the operating table, they can't save you. Like, so there was nothing they could have done more.
Yeah.
You know, and I do have comfort in that I don't have any like ill feelings toward the Lifeline
sure.
or anybody.
If they'd
I
come
think
faster, it wouldn't have changed the outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, Courtney, this is heartbreaking. And I even know this story, and it's making me just sick to my stomach and so sad for you and those sweet girls. And you've just buried your sweet little daughter not 3 months before that. Can you tell us, if there's even words, what do the next few weeks and months look like? You've now had 2 funerals in 2018. You've got 2 little baby girls, a business that your husband, you know, was pretty much running, and he's now not here. What did you do next? I mean, that's a horrible question to even ask, but what did you do next?
Right. So it was just, I mean, I guess it started to kind of sink in. We had the funeral and it was beautiful. The viewing was horrible. Like it was the most exhausting thing. I would never want to relive that day. It's just, we did a closed casket because I don't know. I had this really strong feeling that's what he wanted, even though he looked fine. I knew that he didn't want our kids to see him like that. And I'm so glad I made that decision. That was just something that like, it was so strong. And we never even talked about this before because we didn't ever even, it was never a thought in my mind that he was going to die early or at all.
Yeah. And
so we have the funeral, and the funeral was really one of the most beautiful days of my entire life. I had all of his 10 friends stood up there, and they all took a turn speaking. And we were laughing. And I mean, it was just an amazing service. And it was probably a little inappropriate, but his name was Rocky. So when they took out the casket, after my brother-in-law said the closing prayer, he played over the pulpit the Rocky theme song as they pushed him out. And it was just, I don't know. I know he loved it. And he had a bright blue. We had his casket custom painted Rocky blue. It was just beautiful. Everything turned out beautiful.
I love that.
You know,
I love it.
It really was amazing. And so, I mean, you know, amazing, I guess, is a weird way to describe it.
No, but I'll say, because I've seen pictures of you at your husband's graveside, and you look beautiful and radiant and happy, truly a celebration of this man's life. And Michelle and I have talked about this before. Funerals can be so horrible and awful, and they are so sad because of what they are. And yet how beautiful that you could personalize that to where you felt uplifted and celebrating this wonderful man. And I love the casket. Just the touch of it's a powerful bright blue. And you know that was him. That wasn't just run-of-the-mill, okay, this is how we bury people. But, Courtney, I love that you had, and you don't have really necessarily the frame of mind to even think straight while you're planning a funeral. But I love that you felt that comfort.
Especially when it's so unplanned, right? Yeah. We've talked about this before on our episodes. You know, I had a really unique experience for my husband, including shooting his ashes off at the end of his service in fireworks that he created the capsules for him before he died. That's what he wanted.
Wow.
But, so, you know, it's always so great when you kind of know. But in this situation, you guys are young. I mean, we didn't start talking about this until he had a diagnosis. You had no reason to be discussing these plans, you know?
Right. Yeah, he was 34 when he died, and I was
so young, just a baby,
27, 28. I think I just turned 28. So, yeah, so the funeral really went like amazing. I know that, like, I don't know. The day of the funeral, when they're up there talking, I just seriously felt like I was the only one in that room. And I just felt like there was angels. Like, I think entire heaven came to, like, it was
standing room only.
So, you know, I think like I just felt so carried. It was just the weather, everything was just beautiful. So,
you know, I've attended a lot of funerals, and it is amazing. You watch those that are there that are most impacted. Everyone there is being impacted, but as somebody there to support those that are the most impacted, they do seem like they are lifted and carried. And I would say that I would say the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Somehow there's an energy and something carrying you that's far greater than yourself.
Yeah, because people are like, I don't know how you're doing it. And it's like, I'm not,
Right.
like I couldn't do this. Nobody could do this. But after they all spoke at the funeral, I got up and I spoke, and I knew I wanted to, because I remember one time having a conversation, him saying that, like, if you ever died, I'd speak at your funeral. And I was like, what? Like, there's no way I could do that. Like, I couldn't speak at your funeral. Like, but he's like, yeah, but who knows you better than me, and vice versa. And so I was like, okay, I have to do this. And I have no idea what I said. And I tried to write things down, but I couldn't think straight. So I seriously got up there.
Straight from the heart.
I don't even know what I said. And I hope it even made any bit of sense, but
it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. And I'm sure it was perfect.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So, so the next, I guess after the funeral ends, it was like, so luckily my mom is absolutely amazing. And she came and she stayed with us for a month straight, just slept here, everything. They live 20 minutes away, so it's not far, but I had family and friends. And I always think, like, I have the best support system. Everybody always says, like, oh, do you have family and friends, that help? And it's like, I couldn't have a better support system. There's 8 kids in my family. I love them all. My siblings are amazing. Rocky's friends are amazing. Rocky's family's amazing. Everybody just rallied around us, and still to this day does. So couple days and probably a week after it starts, then, real life sets in. And Rocky had a company that it was called Contractor School. He owned 50% of it, and we had a business partner. And it was kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? What's next? And so my business partners are seriously amazing people, and they were so supportive, and they wanted whatever was best for me and my girls, and they loved Rocky. So they said, they gave me options. We can buy you out, or you can work with us. And right after Rocky died, I wrote every single day. I wrote I wrote notes, and I wrote like a note to him, because I needed to talk to him and at least say what I was going to say to him. And I was going through those this morning and asking him, like, what should I do? Like, I need your help. I don't know what to do. I know nothing about this contractor school. I used to do hair and I worked for my dad, but I knew nothing. Like, I knew as much as I knew that he did, but I couldn't go run his business. So I end up just feeling like what I need to do is I'm going to work here, and I'm going to keep this company. And he built this up, and he did it, he made it profitable, and he built it up. So it was just, I just needed to step in and now kind of like maintain it. He did everything to get it up and running. And so I jumped into that, and that's been a huge blessing. And seriously, they are the most amazing people. They're so fair to me. And I mean, there couldn't be a better situation with them. They've just been amazing people. So now I run my husband's business, and it's thriving, and it's been, I feel like he's proud of me, and we're still doing this together. Like he's never left me. And so I'm almost 3 years out, and he never has left. And so that's how I can just keep going. But it's hard. It's hard. I feel like you get in the lows and you're like, this is horrible, and I don't want to do this anymore. But I have beautiful little girls who are, they love their dad, and they know their dad, and they talk about him every single day. wonder what he's doing or, asking questions, and they remember him. He was so good to always take pictures and videos. I have so many, like, I have his voice, like, on a million different videos that they have, they'll always be able to watch. And
that's going to be such a blessing to them as they get so older. So awesome.
And the really cool thing that I knew he had mentioned this before he died, but he wrote letters to our girls. And so I have letters for each of them from, like, just random times. He would just write them like a little, so he set up emails for them both and emailed them. And so just not even like specific things, just like, he worked in Salt Lake. So there was one time that the weather, like, it was snowing really bad. So he's just trying to, like, let the storm settle. So he's emailing my girls saying, just telling him just something random about him or work and how proud he is, and some, a funny thing they did or they're doing, but always, like, just how much he loves them. And in a couple of them, he even says, like, how he's always, how, him and I are always there for him. And if he ever needs anything, or if they ever need anything, to talk to him. And he said, heaven forbid I'm not around, ask your mom. She knows what I would say.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
It was like, I know he didn't know he was going to die. Like,
but your girls will always have those words. They will have those words straight from him. That is priceless, Courtney.
I love that.
And so many beautiful things that he did. And I don't know, he had a mission statement. He just lived life to the fullest. We traveled a lot. Like, my girls have so many amazing things. Like, they know their dad. And
I love this.
They'll always have these different parts of him as they grow up.
Okay, Courtney, we're gonna take one more break, and then in our last segment, we want you to tell us what resilience is to you and those sweet girls you've got. It sounds like you have a great support system and a great attitude and perspective on things. Yeah. So you've got a lot to teach us. So we'll be right back, and we want you to kind of teach us what resilience is to you. All right, Courtney, you've taught us so much, and your beautiful attitude and perspective and sweet spirit that we can all feel your faith and your optimism. Can you tell us how you have found resilience, or what resilience looks like to you?
Yeah. So I remember, like, a turning point of probably like a month in after Rocky died, and kind of like, this is real life. Like, what am I going to do? I have to do this. I don't have a choice. I have a choice that basically I'm going to have to live the rest of my life. So am I going to choose to do this to the best I can? Or, I mean, that was the only choice I could think of. I have these beautiful little girls who are almost 3 and 5, who their world's been rocked. And I have to be the best mom and best person that I can. And Rocky's, he's going to be with me. And I had felt him. And I just thought, you know what, if I can do this and live in the best way I can, that I can be worthy of that and have the spirit with me, that I'm going to be able to do this with all their help. I have a team, I have a team on this side, and I have a team on that side of the veil. My grandma and grandpa, who I was close with, passed away when I was young. My little brother had passed away. And I just know there's all these people on the other side who they're on my team too, And so I just felt like I had to make this choice. And of course I want to choose to make it, amazing, because I'm going to have to do this. So this is what has happened. And I'm going to face it. I'm going to do the hard things. I like the razor that Rocky, that was his baby. He had it all, personalized and decked out and
customized.
So we ride our razor all the time. We drive it around our little town we live in. And, I'm not going to I'm going to face it before it becomes too much. And so that's what I've just kind of had this, attitude, but
just resilience, face it head on.
I mean, to me, just like, yeah, you got to just face things. Like I can't let anything get too big that it's too scary. So like, I'm going I'm going to get back out there, like, and live and take on this company and do things that are scary, because I know I'm not alone. 100%. I have my family, my friends. I have amazing neighbors who have like taken us in as family. I have the best support system.
I love this. You know, the truth about grief is you have to feel it. Yeah. There's no escaping it. And the only way through all of this is to face it and to walk through it. It's really awesome, though, that you have so much support for you. Not everybody has that kind of support. Yeah. It's not always, not that it's ever easy, but it's not everybody has the support systems in place when something tragic like this happens. So, I mean, what a blessing for you that you clearly come from a strong family. His family was strong. You guys had relationships within your community. He had a wide circle of friends. And then you have great support from your neighbors and I take it ward members. And the fact that you're willing to like take on this business and learn something that wasn't really your passion or your desire, but probably is creating a lot of opportunities for you to grow on multiple levels.
It really has been a huge blessing.
I love how you're talking about how you're still doing this together.
Yeah.
You've got these notes. I mean, literally your husband said, if I'm not there, ask your mom. She'll know what I would say. Because like Rocky had said, you know, maybe half joking, if he ever spoke at your funeral, who knows you better than he does? Who knows Rocky better than you do, Courtney? And I can hear this and I see this in your interactions with these sweet little girls, and your business is thriving. You are carrying on with him, and we can feel that your faith, you know, we all have different concepts of what happens after death, but I think most of us feel there is something besides dirt in the ground or ashes spread about, to where he, your grandparents, your brother, these people that you've lost in this life, and yet they're adding richness to your life and they're adding meaning. And I love that you're doing well in your business. I love the concept of face it head on before it gets too big. How many times do we try to sweep it under the rug because we don't want to deal with it? We don't want to face it. We shove it around. We push it aside, and then it explodes on us. Yeah. But what great advice that is, to just tackle it. I'm going to tackle it today. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. But I guess if I have to do it, I'm going to do it. Awesome. I love that you said that several times. You chose to make it amazing. You didn't just choose to make it bearable.
We're going to create a bunch of merch based on your show.
I choose to make it amazing. Like you buried a baby and a husband in a few-month period, and then you let us know these other loved ones you've lost in your life. And yet you said there came a point in your life you chose to make it amazing. I'm putting that on a T-shirt because that's T-shirt material.
Yeah, it is. I love it.
Well, Courtney, we are just so grateful you would join us and share your story with us and those sweet girls. We've got some great pictures to share. If you're listening to this podcast and you haven't seen our social media pages, go check it out. The most beautiful picture probably ever is the two little girls in a bright blue dress next to the bright blue casket that just is their Rocky dad, champion dad. And like I said, Courtney, I remember the first time I saw those pictures of you at his funeral, I couldn't believe how beautiful and radiant you looked, because I'm a train wreck at my husband's funeral. But I can see the light and I can see the joy, and I can see now that I've heard your story more, it's because, you know, Rocky's right there. And this is a, you know, curveball nobody wanted to face in life, and yet you choose to make it amazing. And you, my friend, are doing that. You are living a very, very amazing life. So thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing the pictures. You guys go check them out on Instagram and Facebook at Relentlessly Resilient. And if you're listening and you like what you hear, go give us a like and subscribe and give us a rating and a review. It helps other people know about the podcast. But even more importantly than that, if you or someone you know has a real life story to share with us, please reach out. You can email us at rrpodcast@ksl.com. Or again, find us on social at Instagram and Facebook at Relentlessly Resilient. We want to keep sharing these stories because they uplift us, they inspire us, and they teach us all how to be a little bit more resilient.
Absolutely. It's really important to remember that whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles other people are dealing with in their lives. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.